Welcome to Arts and Music. I am your host, Victor Janflone. Today on Arts and Music, I'm pleased to bring you Robert Buncher, director, filmmaker. Welcome to the show, Robert Buncher. How you doing today?
I'm great, Victor. How are you?
Oh, I'm just fine. Did anyone in your family work in the entertainment business?
I had an uncle who built and ran several coffee houses in New York. One of them being Gaslight, where Dylan and all the folkies played, and also Ginsberg and the Beats read their poetry. So that's about as close to the entertainment business as I get, which is not bad, actually. Yeah.
So when did the entertainment path begin for you?
Well, actually, I don't think I'm on an entertainment path, actually. I think of myself as a writer and an artist.
Yeah.
And I don't really think of myself as an entertainer. And I would like people to watch my films, don't get me wrong, but I do them to please me, and I think that's maybe why I have a really select audience, which means small. And so it's not the entertainment path, it's just a creative path. Some movies I go see, and I don't really think of them as entertainment, I think them as a conversation. They're part of a conversation. And I go to have this conversation with a filmmaker. And I guess I'm being entertained, but I don't feel that way about it.
You have worked on major motion pictures, and talk about that experience.
Yeah, I spent about 20 some years mostly building sets on feature films and TV series, also doing scenic painting. And I've had some sound work also, which is what I do now, is because I quit building sets and I'm basically doing sound recording and dialogue editing and sound design. But I built a lot of sets, some really cool sets. And I really enjoyed that. I love the long days and the camaraderie and just trying to get something done in an amazingly quick period of time. But what was interesting too was I was able to spend a lot of time working with production, with a shoot crew, and I as a standby carpenter. So maybe for a 14-hour shoot day, I did 10 minutes worth of work, but I got to watch them work. I got to watch the director work. I got to watch how the technicians work together. So I learned how a film was made, how it worked actually technically, how things work together. I got to see amazing actors work. I mean, sometimes you're just there and you're watching this performance and it blows you away. You're like 10 or 15 feet away from this amazing actor, and it's just like, so that made me really be interested in being able to do more of that and work with that kind of thing. So yeah, I spent a lot of time on films. Yeah.
So what inspired you to start making films of your own?
Well, I was working as a sculptor, and I was making these life-size expressionistic sculptures, figuratives, and they obviously it's a static pose, but it has rhythm and it has information, and they all had narratives to them. I mean, you could feel a narrative in it, and if you were looking at that sculpture, you would again contemplate that sculpture, and you would come to some narrative about what that was about, And I thought it'd be really cool if I could just make the narrative. I could write this narrative and film it. And I started doing video work, but I wasn't doing narrative stuff. I started doing experimental video. And it wasn't until years later I had started writing scripts. It wasn't until years later that I actually tried to film a script, which is not an easy thing. It's not easy.
Now writing it too. I mean,
yeah, right. It takes me a long time to write a script. But I really edit a lot. I mean, I write and I edit and I edit and I edit and I edit, and basically dialogue. Writing a script is a really interesting thing, and that's for me. I like to do my own film, so I want to use my script now. Although I'm looking at, there's some things I would actually like to. There's a couple of short stories, other people's stories I like to make films from that I'm thinking about doing that for that experience of translating somebody else's idea. Yeah, and onto the screen rather than just my own. It's really a different challenge, There's a Carson McCullers story I'm thinking about doing that with. And they're really dialogue intense, more than they have to be. Because a film doesn't have to be all words, like it gets its visual, but I end up with a lot of words because I like writing them.
Do you have a favorite director besides yourself?
I'm not my favorite director. I look at my work and I say, yeah, man, it could be better. But there's a lot of directors that I really admire. Mm-hmm. I think maybe the first one that really caught my eye was Cassavetes, John Cassavetes, and his films like Faces, where he has this roving camera on his shoulder and he goes in and he gets in the face of these really emotional situations with his actors. And black and white, his early films, are just beautiful films. It's so searching of the human psyche, and emotions. So Cassavetes, and I liked Maisel brothers. They were documentarians and they made some famous films. But the one I go back to and I've watched over again is Salesman, which is the story of these 4 Bible salesmen. Mm-hmm. in the late 60s, who go around and they go to Catholic churches and they get a bunch of names and they go to sell these really expensive Bibles to these people, who don't really need them, and they're like salesmen, Sometimes they double up, they gang up on these people, trying to get them to take their hard-earned bucks for these, and so they were great. And the interesting thing about that film is that David Mamet wrote a play called Glengarry Glen Ross, which became a film. It's a famous play. And a lot of the stuff he has in that play was taken from this film, the interactions with the customers and everything. It's really interesting that he used that. And then I take that film, Glengarry Glen Ross, which I loved, mm-hmm. with a marvelous cast. I watched it about 20 times before I made my first film. So that film influenced me, and that film was influenced by the Maisel brothers back from the 1960s. So anyway, the Maisel brothers, I like their films. I like, there's a guy I discovered, or the director, this Hungarian director, Bela Tar, who I discovered a few years ago, and he quit making films. His last film was The Turin Horse, which was based on an anecdote about Nietzsche, and it's one of the bleakest films in the world, and I love it because I have a bleak outlook on things. So I said, well, this guy's with me. And he made a couple of films before that called The Werkmeister Harmonies, which is, in my mind, it's almost a perfect take on fascism. And it's just an incredibly made film. The Werkmeister Harmonies, Bela Tar, and Turin Horse, 2 films I recommend for anybody to see. Amazing.
Can you explain the process of making a film?
You mean after the script's written and all that, and you mean the actual physical making of a film? Is that?
Yeah, I mean that, or whatever it means to you too, as far as showing somebody. If somebody was going to say, "Hey, Bob, how do I go about making a film?"
Yeah, so say you wrote a script, say you had an idea, and you went to all the trouble to write a script. Mm-hmm. So at that point, and when you wrote the script, you probably had people in mind you might want to cast, or the type of person, because you have to cast the roles, which is maybe the most important thing in making a film is how you cast it, right? Because that's you have to have the right actor to be that character. And your locations, you may have thought some of your locations through where you wanted this to be or what that looked like. So you had those things in mind. So you find those locations, you get those actors, and they want to be in your film or not, or they.
Now this is all hard to do, right? I mean, you're doing it yourself.
Yeah.
A major motion picture, they have all of these people go out and do these jobs.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Is like I didn't have any producers. I had to not only direct, I had to produce all this. So I had to raise any money I got,
right.
And sometimes I didn't raise enough. It came out of my pocket. My first one I got a grant for, but the second one, 2/3 of the money came out of my pocket, which was like not great. And so I. On my films, I was like the producer, director, the writer, and then I was a set builder because I didn't have, I had to build some little sets, and I scrubbed floors. If I knew an actor had to be on the floor, I went in and scrubbed the floor down so they wouldn't have to go on a dirty floor because there's nobody else to do it. So I did everything. But on my last film, I had a really wonderful scenic designer, Daniel Lubach she just got out of Carnegie Mellon, and now she's working in L.A. So I worked with her, and we really bonded. It was a wonderful thing. So I had her, but then I didn't shoot anything. I have a shooter. I have sound people. Somebody sets up the lights, and when we get to the day of the shoot, then I'm just a director. Mm-hmm. Everything else drops away, and although you still have that burden of producing and making sure everybody shows up, and you're paying out a lot of money, you know. Although the people who worked for me were really cool. I had people in the industry just come and work either for free or really cheap because I worked with them for years, you know. So it's just like a token payment. So that was good. But so to make the film, you know, you get to a location, you have the idea of the shot, you try to set up the shot, you do your master shot and going for your coverage if that's what you're doing, you know, or maybe you shoot the whole thing in a master and that's all it takes. But you try and honor what was on the page of the script, what it's supposed to feel like, what's supposed to happen, the interactions between the actors, and you hope your crew is with you. You know, you hope your camera guy has your vision. You got to, you know, you like that shot works. So yeah, it'd be nice if you didn't have to be the producer and the director. That's very distracting. I would love to have a producer on my film where I didn't have to worry about the money so much, and I didn't have to set things up, but I could just worry about the creative end of it, which would be, that's not really how to make a film, but that's what's happened with me making films. If that's
well, yeah, it's a start from somewhere. I mean,
yeah.
You know, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
How do you see the world today in relation to films being released?
Well, I think there's a lot of films which are total bullshit. You know, most of them probably they don't relate to the world. Even if they try to relate to something in the world, they do it in a way that's a fantasy, and not like a fantasy that's just a different way of telling a story, but not real. You know, their outcomes aren't real. Their characters don't interact in a way that's real. So to me, those films mean nothing. But there are films that are real. You know, they like the Maisel brothers used to say their cinema was what they call direct cinema. You know, it was like it was a true cinema. You know, so I think that you can make fiction that is true. You know, there's a way to approach things that are maybe contemplative or not, but the characters interact in a way that's real. They process things in a real way. Things aren't solved by bombs exploding, but things aren't solved also by, you know, some magic, wonderful thing happens. You know, it's just like life goes on in a way, and maybe it's very subtle, and maybe you have to think about it. There's a wonderful film, Once Upon a Time in Anatolia, which is a Turkish film, and it's got subtitles, so you have to be able to read, you know, to watch it, which is a good thing. And it just covers this one night and a day in an investigation into a murder. But it is so subtle and layered in the interactions between the cops and the suspects and this prosecutor and this doctor. And to me, it's very real, you know. It's like nobody explains anything. Nothing is really explained, you know. It's like you have to watch it and understand what happened with your understanding of the way somebody glances at somebody or something.
Do you feel you're a political person?
To the core. And in a sense that, not in a sense that I go and work for candidates or anything, but like I think about the world. I'm a humanist, you know.
Sure,
and I think about power and oppression and what goes on every day, you know, socially, economically, you know. So in that sense, I'm watching what happens and I'm concerned about it, and I try to address it and I talk about it because it's real. It's what's happening to everybody every day. You know, it's not like something. It's not like a campaign slogan or something. It's like politics is like what happens between people, and between government and people. So that in that way, I observe that and I really give a damn about it. So yeah, I'm political in that sense.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay,
I'm with you.
We're agreeing here. Let's get an argument. Come on.
So back to your film work.
Okay.
What was the first film you made?
The first film I think I made was called The Surface of Things, and it was just I shot a lot of these images of moving cars around the Bloomfield Bridge, and some shots of myself, and manipulated images a good bit. I think I reversed images, and I took these and I edited them together, and what I thought was kind of an implied kind of feeling of movement of some kind of narrative, but not anything clear. And I think I uttered a few words like, I saw a girl today, I saw this girl today. She was in white, she was all dressed in white, or something like that. Whatever that means, I don't know. And
you saw the girl today. She was dressed in white.
Yeah, man, and that really affected me, I guess. So that was the film, something like that. I don't know. It was a short few minutes or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the first film, The Surface of Things. It was about the surface of things.
How would you describe the progression from your first film? Or is there a progression?
Well, my first film, I gathered images and I made them into a piece, into a logical or a coherent, not logical, but coherent piece. And now the last film, so I write the scripts. I already have an idea of the pattern of the piece, what it's going to be. And then I go and gather the images to fit that pattern. So it's a reverse in a way, but I still have a narrative which is open and suggestive, rather just like the first piece in a way. So in a way, I work from the other end, but it's still a suggested narrative and not or an implied narrative and not a. So I'm working with the same kind of idea, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cut You Right Here. This is your current film.
Yeah.
Right? Why the title?
Well, that's a line from the film.
And it's not going to give away the plot or anything.
No, just this one in the beginning, in the first part, which is almost like a title sequence that goes on for 5 minutes. But the actor, Jeffrey Carpenter, plays it Elwood, and he threatens the other guy with a knife, with a switchblade. And it looks kind of dire for the kid. And he says, "I could cut you right here." So cut you right here. It's like it's a very existential moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this could be it. Cut you right here. But. So that's the title, and because we see the young hitchhiker, he's sitting in an abandoned car in a fenced-off place, and he's thinking about it. Right after he's thinking about this, like "Cut You Right Here" is that existential moment, which is every moment. So the title of it is "Every Moment's Existential." Cut you right here. That's what the title is for me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And which actors were a part of this film?
Jeffrey Carpenter, Tom Kolos, Adrienne Ware is the lead female with Theo Allen, who's another great actress who went off to Chicago, and a fellow I went to college with, Jim Crut, plays a little role. Famous Jim Crut, who's the helicopter zombie from Dawn of the Dead, and he's a great actor too. He played a little bit for me, and John Shepard, who was in my first film, and is a wonderful actor, director, just an all-around Renaissance guy who I love, man. He played a part in this too. And they were the major actors.
Now, is this considered, do you think this is your biggest film you've done yet?
Certainly the longest. It's only 2 narrative films. One is 15 minutes and one is 32. And it was difficult to do something that long for me because it was the 9 shooting days. Over a time. But I've learned a good deal about directing by doing both these films, particularly the second one. I was much more at ease with the second one. I presented myself with many problems, with many locations, working in different locations, and I think I learned a good bit. I really enjoy working with actors. I love actors. They're so creative, and I could sit and watch them, all day, which I get to do because I direct. And I write words on a piece of paper, and I get to watch these people become these characters and say these words. It blows you away. Yeah. It's like, wow, well, they did a beautiful, And then you talk, it's a wonderful thing to get to deal with that, to see that, and to work with that. Yeah.
Well, at this time, I'd like to present you with a sample reel of Robert's works.
Where are you folks headed?
Atlantic City.
What is this, a gambling junket?
Yeah. I'm gonna trade these girls in for a few chips. Try my hand.
Trade my ass, you piece of shit.
Shut up, Ma, or I'll bust your skull.
Damn it, Elwood.
Hey, listen. There's a gas station up here. I'm gonna need you to keep the guy busy.
What?
Just get him out of the building, away from the register.
Hey, man, listen, I'm not interested in going to jail.
What is that supposed to be? Some sort of enlightenment?
Elwood's smart. You listen to him.
I hear him, but I'm not going to jail tonight.
You got any money? I'm asking, you got any money?
No, I don't got any money.
Well, this ride ain't for free. You got some money, you give it to me. You don't got any money, you do as I say, or you get out. You walk. All right.
Do you have any advice for someone who wants to be a director?
Read a lot, because it's important to read, but watch a lot of films. But then, when you find a film that really works for you, that really touches you, watch that film many times. Because when you watch that film, each time you watch it, you're going to learn something else about what that director did, besides how that scene worked, or why that it was written in a certain way, or why the camera moved in a certain way, or the sound works for you for something. So the more you watch something, that one, you really make a great study on one wonderful film. You'll learn so much. I think that's the most important thing.
Your website is called Current Conflict.
Yeah.
Any reason for it? And what do you mean by current conflict?
Well, I was born in 1946, so I'm really an old guy. And I think since I was born, we had just had this major upheaval in the world with the finish of Second World War, they called it. But we've been at war ever since then. We've been pretty much at war. This country, externally, and then internally, there's always some kind of conflict going on, some social conflict or economic. So the world revolves on conflict. It doesn't work on love, which we would really all want to have, since I'm from that generation and you're from that generation. There's conflict.
Yeah.
Conflict makes the world go round, and it's the interesting thing, and it's the thing we have to deal with. So what's the current conflict? That's what that is for me.
Do you have any plans for another film?
Yeah, but I'm not sure when. I have some scripts I'm working on. I have a project I'm doing now, which it's a video project, but it's an installation project for some museum, which I don't know which one yet, but it's a series of different videos presented in different formats. And that's what I'm working on now, rather than, I'm kind of like hanging back from film, because it's a pretty deep commitment, and I'm not ready to jump into that. I don't have the script ready for it. So I'm just, I'm working on this installation project, which is, the working title for that is a Homeland Security Project. So you can get an idea what I'm playing with,
So this is going to be at a museum, though? Like a presentation?
Yeah, like it'll be in a museum for some period of time with different video type installations and formats and some holograms and some cool stuff that I'm working on. Mm-hmm. It's a nice break from working with a bunch of people on a film, where you have to work with a lot of people and make sure everything happens. This way, it's like it's me. I have to pull it together. My wife she does all the lighting for me, because she's a wonderful photographer, and maybe I need an actor for a little bit or something. But it's really a small project, and it's not so burdensome.
Are we living in a police state?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, the government knows more about us than any other police state ever did. I mean, they don't have to come and tear open our mail or stand by and watch us on a corner, because they get everything off our phones and our computers, so they know everything we do and everything we think. And obviously the police have become militarized, because it's illegal to use the army in this country, so they get all the weapons from the war, and they have all these the SWAT guys, and they all dress up in these military uniforms, and they drive tanks down your street, and they boom sonic waves at you that pierce your ears.
The LRADs, yeah.
The LRADs, which they used here in Pittsburgh for the first time.
Yes, they did.
So they can kill you if they want to, and nobody gives a damn. And if somebody's starting to look now, but I addressed this in my earlier short films, my 2 films I made about police killing unarmed black men. This is the stuff that drives me crazy. Yeah, we're in a police state.
Necessary arrest and
Hometown junta.
Hometown junta.
Yeah. I mean, this stuff makes me crazy. That's one of the things I think about a lot. And so, yeah, that we are in a police state.
How can we evolve out of this low-minded mentality?
They want to control everything. They want, they want the government to cut our benefits, our Social Security and our Medicare, and give it to the military-industrial complex or something. They're trying to drain everything out of us they can. I think it's really difficult to stop this. They have the guns. They have.
And they want to take yours.
And if they didn't take mine anyway, I don't know if I'm going to go up against those guys with a tank. I mean, I don't. If I had a gun, and I'm not saying if I do or not, that tank is like really frightening.
It is.
You better have a little. I know the Hungarians, when the Hungarians had their revolution, and the Russian tanks were rolling down the road, they'd get a little, like a pie pan, because it looked like and they covered up with dirt. And the Russians thought, oh, that's a mine. And they'd stop their tank and open up, and that's when the Hungarian freedom fighters would go in and shoot them. But I don't know if we can really do that, and I'm not optimistic about the future of the earth, all told, because we're too much controlled by the Koch brothers and all their friends. So, those worms that run Congress, those beetles that they control our government, that just, they take the graft and they do whatever these people want. So what's our chance? What is our chance?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you being on, and thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for watching Arts and Music. If you would like to be a guest on the show, please email us at artsandmusicpgh@yahoo.com. And until next time, peace.